Welcome back to TS Classic, where today we're inspecting an obscure British steam locomotive that looks very similar to Toby the Tram Engine, but this is not Toby's basis. Instead, we're looking at the LNER Y6 class, brought to Train Simulator by Forth's Games, with help from Wayside Works, the Forge Simulation, and other important people who are also credited in the manual. If you want to learn more about the history of these quirky little locomotives, I've got a mini documentary about them on this channel, with said documentary being made in December 2022. The Y6 was released in July 2022, and she is available to buy from either the Forge Simulation or Steam Sound Supreme. My copy came from the latter site, where the pack costs £13.50 or $27.56 NZD. She's kind of like a simpler version of the J70 that Digital Traction made, but that's not to say the Y6 is bad. This little 040 is not to be confused with the other Y6, an Australian diesel locomotive preserved at the Don River Railway in Tasmania. This pack includes the J70's older sister in LNER and British Railways guises, as well as a short selection of Great Eastern coaches and wagons. Speaking of which, this Wisbech and Upwell coach looks very familiar, and is ideal for running behind a C53. As for the Y6, her original classification was G15, and to be more specific, the liveries included in this pack are as follows: LNER pre-war, with lining, LNER wartime, LNER wartime with BR numbers, LNER with an E prefix, or should it be labelled as a suffix, LNER post-war, British Railways transitional, and British Railways early crest. The variant with British Railways Gill Sands lettering is fictitious because, although two Y6s survived into the British Railways era, neither of them carried this traditional livery. But they both received BR numbers, and 68083 even carried the early emblem, while 68082 remained in LNER wartime black despite the new number. Unfortunately, this pack doesn't include any Great Eastern liveries for the locomotive herself. Well, not yet anyway. Even though I'm not too fussed about historical accuracy when I'm playing TS, I've never really liked running the Y6 with the wagons that she actually comes with. On October 10th, 2023, Mr. Forth made a Facebook post confirming that he's working on those Great Eastern liveries, but I'll wait patiently for the liveries instead of spamming the comments for a release date. I may be an idiot, but I'm not stupid. And besides, the man's got other projects to work on. For the time being, I suggest running those Great Eastern wagons with other GER locomotives, such as the C53, L77, P43, S69 and T26 classes. I especially like running the Wisbech and Upwell coach behind a C53, because that combination looks exactly like Toby and Henrietta. Now we come to the driving experience. For the longest time, I was confused as to which end was meant to be the front, but I worked it out based on the funnel's location. Traditionally, funnels on steam locomotives were always at the front, with at least one notable exception being the Southern Pacific AC-12 class, aka cab forward. When you're on the footplate, it's a strange experience due to the presence of this wooden case. Just like the J70, the Y6 has functioning windows and doors at each end. There's also folding seats for the crew, and you can even open the smokebox door as well. Although this locomotive has driver's controls at both ends, I often drive with the camera view at the back and looking down the boiler because that's what I'm used to. Incidentally, I can't see where the coal and water are even supposed to go, since the engine doesn't appear to have conventional tanks or a bunker. The Y6 is equipped with a bell and speed governor, two safety devices that were required for use on the Wisbech and Upwell tramway. The bell is controlled by pressing the B key for 2 short dings, or Shift B for continuous ringing. Meanwhile, the speed governor is toggled on or off by pressing the Control, Shift and D keys, and this will limit the locomotive's speed to 8 miles per hour. I must have got the key binding confused with the J70, because I used to think it was Control G or Shift G for the Y6 as well. When you're in the scenario editor, the Y6 will usually spawn without cowcatchers and side plates, so don't tell the policeman as we sneak up to an Ophir quarry. However, this means that you can compare the vastly different underframes of the Y6 and J70. If you want the side plates to appear, add S to the locomotive's ID in that pop-out box on the right. Adding the letter A instead will make both cowcatchers and side plates appear, so now the policeman is happy. I've always preferred how the engines looked in this condition. The same goes for the J70. As far as I know, we don't actually have the Wisbech and Upwell tramway in TS, but there is still a decent selection of freeware and payware routes on which the Y6 doesn't feel too out of place. Take the Holyhead Breakwater Railway or the Esthwaite branch for example. Those two are freeware routes from UK Train Sim, but the former was actually run by Class 01 diesel shunters in real life. This engine makes for an adequate shunter due to her small wheelbase. I would even go so far as to say that the Malmesbury branch is fine for the Y6, despite that being a Great Western line. One thing I certainly advise against is trying to use the Y6 to lug 8 Mark I coaches from Castle Douglas to Newton Stewart, the most challenging part of the Western Lines of Scotland route. She is not cut out for that kind of endurance run, and you'd be better off using a GWR King Class 460 instead. For the purposes of this review, I conducted a test run to work out the Y6's absolute top speed. I ran her out of Esthwaite with a strange trio of LNER coaches, and although she struggled to maintain speed on the 1 in 65 climb out of the town, she eventually made it to 31 miles per hour. She is by no means a speed demon, especially when compared to the A4 Pacifics. And I think that's all I've got to say about the LNER Y6 class. Despite the current lack of Great Eastern Railway liveries, I still think this is a decent locomotive to have in the collection, and I look forward to future add-ons from Mr. Forth of Games, especially his new 7F, as the ancient Kuju era model is in dire need of replacement.